Hello, my name is Garrett Moody, and I will be doing my project on the existential themes shown in Black Mirror. So, what exactly is Black Mirror? Black Mirror is a Netflix original TV series where every individual episode has nothing to do with any of the previous or future episodes. They are their own individual story, and they all take place in a sort of semi futuristic sci fi world where they all are based around some kind of technological advancement. And every Black Mirror episode ends with some kind of big twist that leaves you wondering what the heck just happened, which is really the big appeal of the story as well as the sci fi aspect of it. So, in the season 2 episode, White Bear, this character is woken up in this, we'll call it a world that she doesn't remember anything. She doesn't know anything, she doesn't remember anything. So she goes into this world and realizes that everyone is avoiding her and everyone's like taking a video of her from afar. And towards the end, you realize that she's in a never ending loop that people have put her in as a sort of punishment and torture. So she committed a crime in the real world, and they put her through this as a punishment, a kind of social rejection, and there's some kind of, you know, psychological torture shown in the episode. So this is pretty similar to the example of Sisyphus, I believe, because Sisyphus is thrown into a punishment that is never ending, and Sisyphus finds a way to kind of scorn at the people who put him in this situation. Although she can't necessarily do this in this episode because her mind is wiped every time, so she has to relearn this terrible experience every time she's put through it for other people's enjoyment. I think it's a pretty good parallel to that example. It also shows kind of when you're thrown into life, you kind of have to, relearn everything, or not relearn, but learn everything that you're given and try to understand what the meaning of your life is, or at least some people try to do that. And in the end, she finds out her meaning of her life is truly horrible. It's for the entertainment of others as a sort of entertainment show for the punishment she committed, or for the crime she committed in her real life. In the season 5 episode Smithereens, you follow a character who is doing everything in their power to talk to one of the higher ups at a social media tech conglomerate to explain one of the tragedies that happened in their lives, which is based around everyone, which is based around the fact that in this world, everyone is on their phones. It's almost like real life. Um, and he talks about how everyone is always on their phones and how it's caused extreme issues in the world. And the reason he's trying to talk to this person is because the person he loved, his wife, was killed because in a car accident because he was texting on his phone. And he wishes to get that message across. And in the end, you realize that when he ends up talking to him and he explains this story to the guy, but the police think that he has a weapon, so he ends up getting killed in the end through a police standoff. And it's kind of shown that everyone else is looking at their phones or their computer, like looking at the news, like seeing this story on the news, and how they just look at it and then they look away almost as if they never even looked at it in the first place. And this kind of shows that your overarching insignificance in, such a large world, and your individual choices may not have an effect on anyone else's meaningfulness in their life, but the choices that you make in your own life give yourself meaning. And the meaning to him Like, the whole thing he wanted to do was to be able to talk to him and tell that story and hopefully make a change. But in the end, it did nothing. But he fulfilled what he wanted and for his goal and the meaning of his life, even though it had no large impact, and really shows how insignificant the choices you make in the universe. In the season 3 episode Shut Up and Dance, you follow a character who you find doing a promiscuous activity on his computer, and he ends up getting a virus, and there are people who are telling him to do certain things or else they'll release a video of him doing the activity he was doing on his computer. And the story basically follows him along, listening to the commands of the people, uh, forcing him to do these things. Otherwise, they'll release the video. And in the end, he ends up stealing them some money and ends up killing a guy. And he does everything they say, and they release the video anyway. His parents finds out, the police find out, and it's alluded to that he eventually goes to jail. So throughout the entire story, he is extremely worried about the consequences of what will happen. But I think you can also say that he's also very anxious because he doesn't know what will happen. Because a big reason of why people are anxious about death is that they don't know what happens afterwards. There's a kind of not knowing what will happen when it happens. So, sure, he can be worried about the fact of the situation that he's in, but you don't, he's anxious about what will happen afterwards, like the kind of social outcast he would become or the consequences that will follow that he doesn't know anything about. Black Mirror is really riddled with examples of absurdity. Camus' viewpoint on absurdity is that life is absurd. And in the episode I mentioned previously about the man on a search to find a higher up at the tech conglomerate Smithereens, he is constantly on a search to talk to this man as a kind of solution to the meaning of his life. And Camus says that with this search for meaning in an otherwise meaningless world, it leaves us depressed. And in the episode, it kind of shows that he's in anguish towards the end, and he gets himself into all these horrible situations. And towards the end, he tries to commit suicide, but is saved by the guy he tried to kidnap. And Camus would say that suicide is not the way that you should go out. You want to be a sort of metaphysical rebel against the situation that you're in. The season 3 episode Nosedive follows a character in a world where social media is exaggerated to an extreme extent to the way that we see it in the real world right now, where everything you do and everything you're able to get and the people you are with are all dictated on a star system 0 to 5. So basically, the worth of your life is based on this number that you're given, where other people rank you on your interactions with them. And it really shows how inauthentic people live in these kinds of ways. You don't have real conversations with people. She has a conversation with her brother who doesn't really care about the social media rank and really just does what he feels is living a more authentic life in that sense. In the episode, he even says, "Remember when we had real conversations?" That's because everything she do is dictated off of this number that she receives through other people. And in the end, she ends up breaking a bunch of social norms and gets her rank destroyed and she ends up going to jail and has a altercation with another prisoner there where they're both bickering at each other, and it starts off rage inducing, but they end up having a joyous conversation in a more authentic way that is true to themselves. And it shows how inauthentic social media can really be in the real world, and how it forces people to change who they really are and be who they're not. So I thought this was a very good example of authenticity. So in the end, Black Mirror on the surface level is a sci-fi semi-futuristic take on our current world with crazy unexpected twists at the end, and it really has a lot of deeper meanings in it regarding philosophy, a lot of different philosophical concepts, um, some of which are existential. And it really shows a lot of examples of, what meaning is there meaning, things on absurdity and authenticity. I think it's a great show if you're interested in these topics as well as, sci-fi and stuff like that. And yeah, thank you for watching my presentation.